Imagine getting paid just for sharing your thoughts on products and services you use every day. With Survey Junkie, it's that simple. Click on the link in the video description to discover how you can start earning today by taking surveys.
A Calgary woman whose father has challenged her euthanasia request in court is starving herself to death and expects to die within weeks. The 27-year-old autistic woman, who can only be identified as MV because of a court order, has asked judges to let her get a lethal injection, despite objections from her dad. She's now starving herself to death, and wants judges to greenlight her euthanasia request so she doesn't perish in an incredibly unpleasant manner. It's one of the most troubling legal battles Canada has seen since it introduced its controversial medical assistance in dying, MAID, law in 2016. MV had applied for, and was set to receive, a lethal injection on February 1st. Her dad launched a 4-month legal battle to stop this from happening. He says she's not sick, just autistic, and reportedly worries that the young woman has been influenced by others. In April, a judge sided with MV, saying it was her decision to make, but hit pause, so the case could be heard by the Alberta Court of Appeal. That hearing was set to take place on October 7th. On Tuesday, MV's lawyer Austin Palladot asked the province's top court for that stay to be lifted. He said there's been a material change in circumstance because MV has begun a voluntary stoppage of eating and drinking, VSED. VSED is incredibly unpleasant and is increasing my suffering, MV wrote in the application, according to CBC. I would greatly prefer to receive MAID to reduce the suffering I have to endure. She says her underlying problems persist, and she's been to hospital many times for non-psychiatric inpatient treatment in recent months. My physical suffering continues to be intolerable, she says. Justice Jolene Antonio, from the appeals court, on Wednesday agreed to fast-track the hearing about whether MV's assisted suicide could go ahead. The hearing could happen as soon as June 10th, reports show. It will feature lawyers for all the parties, which includes Alberta Health Services and 2 campaign groups that are acting as interveners. MV stopped eating and drinking on May 28, a source close to the case told DailyMail.com. It's not clear whether she will die before the hearing takes place. MV has not revealed what medical conditions she suffered from in order to qualify for euthanasia in the first place. She says that over recent years she's been to specialists and exhausted the available pain and nausea medications they offered for her problems. Her only known diagnoses are autism and ADHD, which don't make her eligible for MAID. Those seeking euthanasia in Canada must get 2 doctors to sign paperwork describing a grievous and irremediable medical condition that causes intolerable suffering. For MV's application, one of the 2 doctors rejected her. She turned to a tiebreaker 3rd clinician, who greenlighted her for lethal injection in December. Her dad says she's generally healthy, and that her issues are psychological. He seeks a judicial review to examine how his daughter got MAID approval. The father-daughter row has intensified concerns about one of the world's most permissive assisted dying programs. Alex Schadenberg from the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, an intervener in the case, says MV was persuaded to stop eating and drinking by pro-euthanasia advocates for their own political and social purposes. MV is a victim of the death lobby, he said. I am convinced that MV, who is otherwise healthy, was only approved for euthanasia because she is autistic. This is clearly a form of disability discrimination. Many Canadians support euthanasia, and the campaign group, Dying with Dignity, says procedures are driven by compassion, an end to suffering and discrimination and desire for personal autonomy. Rights groups say the country's regulations lack necessary safeguards, devalue the lives of disabled people, and prompt doctors and health workers to suggest the procedure to those who might not otherwise consider it. The number of MAID deaths jumped 31.2% to 13,241 between 2021 and 2022, official numbers show. Some 44,958 people have received assisted deaths since the federal MAID law was introduced in 2016. Canada's road to allowing euthanasia began in 2015, when its top court declared that outlawing assisted suicide deprived people of their dignity and autonomy. It gave national leaders a year to draft legislation.